This is The High Road with author and registered psychotherapist, Dr. Marlene Bizub. Dr. Marlene speaks to the heart of people who need to be lifted up and get out of the muck and mire that often accompanies major life changes, such as divorce or separation. Dr. Marlene will aspire to help parents of divorce to love their children more than they hate their ex, and to learn to take the high road. So please welcome the host of The High Road, Dr. Marlene.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. Welcome, George. Thanks for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be with you, Dr. Marlene.
Well, I'm going to jump right in because I would like to think that we can finish this topic this week. I'm not sure, but in an attempt, and we don't need to rush. I think this is good information for people out there to have. But we have a bit left, and so it might take 2 weeks. And so I'm going to jump in. But we're talking about the rules of co-parenting, specifically what parents need to be sure to include in their parenting plan. And George, I know you see it. I see it every day. People have a poorly written plan from the past, and now we're cleaning it up in the present and for the future. Parents just don't know what they don't know. And sometimes they try to do it without attorneys or mental health professionals or whoever, someone who can help them and know what should go in a parenting plan. And sometimes maybe they have a overworked attorney, no offense here, not picking on your profession, or an attorney who maybe isn't that well versed in parenting plans, and they forget an item or two or three or five or 10 that should be in there that they don't think about. And that's why I was really feeling compelled a few weeks ago to start this topic and talk about it, because parents don't know how much easier they're going to make their lives if they have a well-written plan. And yes, that might mean that you have 22 or 23 items, but it will make your life much easier going forward. Now, please tell me you agree.
Oh, I totally agree, and it's worth it. I know attorneys are expensive for people, but it's worth it to have it done right the first time rather than
Yes.
have to come back repeatedly and try to modify and modify. Getting it done right the first time is important, and in the long run, really represents economy, I think.
Yes, it does. And I'm glad you said that, because I hear parents frequently say, well, I was using so and so, or I was going to use so and so, but he or she is just too expensive. And I'm like, oh no, sometimes you get what you pay for. And if you have an attorney who is dedicated to this type of law and knows it well, it's well worth your money. Like you said, it's more economical in the long run than if you have to go back to court.
Absolutely. Returning to court is difficult, and I think it's expensive for people emotionally as well as economically.
Well, that's it. It is. It takes its toll. And this is something I especially see. And I know you do during the process, but not so much afterwards. But boy, I really see the result emotionally on parents and children of a poorly written plan.
Well, and that's the first thing that I would say to a client when they came in and said, I've got a problem. And I said, have you looked at your parenting plan?
Right? Well,
And
that's the other thing, is people have to use their roadmap once they get it.
absolutely. And you'd be surprised at how often people say, well, no, I never looked at that.
Yeah, they don't even know what's in it. I'll ask them things like that too, like, well, what does it say about summer? Or what does it say about this particular holiday break or whatever? And they won't know. And I'm like, you don't know your parenting plan? I mean, you don't have to know every single detail, but I would think how you split up summer or Christmas break or any holiday break, I would think you would know, or spring break. I have parents that they don't know, like spring break is 2 weeks out, and they don't know if they're splitting it. I mean, I had this happen this week. The parent did not know 2 weeks out right now, here where we live, did not know if they split it or alternate it. And I said, well, you better find out.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yes. Yes. So let's dive in. This one I talk about a lot because we have two what I call competing items in parenting plans often. And I tell parents you want to include both, but it will appear that they are competing and they're really not. And so I'm going to explain the distinction. And what the rules or the item says, not a rule, the item says communications between the co parents are expected to occur regarding troubles, that's the operative word here, the children are having, including but not limited to school problems, medical problems, and legal problems. Now, there's another item that we often put in plans. I'm going to have to find it because I wasn't actually thinking ahead that I need to talk about this. But the other item we put in says that both parents may have access to school or medical records pertaining to the child, that each parent will contact the school or medical provider directly to get that information. So, yes, we are saying you don't rely on the other parent. If you want to know what's going on at school, you need to have a parent portal as well as the other parent. You need to be in contact with the teacher or school counselor or whoever it may be, as well as the other parent, and not rely on them. But that's why the operative word in this item is troubles. So when the kids are having troubles, they're having problems, and it's something that the other parent won't know unless you tell them, you have to tell them. And I get parents who don't get that, well, it wasn't my place to tell them. Oh, yes, it was. And I'm going to give you an example or two before I let you take over and talk about this. But for example, the child gets caught shoplifting. And if they are ticketed, is usually what happens, by the police on your time, and they don't tell the other parent, and you don't tell the other parent is likely not going to know. Well, they need to know because, first of all, what if that court date falls on that parent's time? Plus, you just plain need to know if your child got ticketed. I don't want to say arrested because I don't know that they arrest kids when they get caught shoplifting, but they ticket them and they call your parent, you know, and I've had this happen on cases of mine, so I kind of know how it goes. But if you don't tell the other parent, they're not going to know. That is something the other parent needs to know, or they're teenagers, or let's hope it's teenagers and not younger, and they get caught with alcohol, underage drinking. This is a problem, and it's something the other parent needs to know. I'm going to let you comment.
Well, I think that's true, and that's part of the reason why we have um, telephone protocols put in
Yeah.
parenting plans for both the parents to communicate with each other and
Mhm.
for the parent to communicate when they're the absent parent with the child. So it's critically important that that communication occur, and the parents need to be, I think, united in how they respond to one of those troubles.
Yes. Oh, that's a good point. Because just like with underage drinking, when I was growing up, the age at which you could buy alcohol was actually 18. That shows you how old I am. But where I grew up, it was 18. And so you have a 16, 17-year-old kid that gets caught with alcohol, and you get one parent who says that's absolutely not okay, and another parent who says, "Oh, what's the big deal? I drank at that age. It's only another year and he or she can buy their own." That's not okay for parents to send mixed messages to kids. And while you were talking about telephone protocols, what that makes me think of is the apps that we use to communicate. This is a perfect topic to use the app for because, whether it's Talking Parents or Our Family Wizard or whatever you have, um, send a message on the app because then nobody overreacts, nobody gets upset. You can communicate and discuss it back and forth on the app before you talk about it in front of the child and with the child. Because I tell you, it gives kids a lot of power when they see their parents disagree over something having to do with them. And it takes the focus off of the alcohol they got caught with and onto the parents. But it really does. Now the focus is on these parents picking on each other and arguing instead of on the child where it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think once kids, if I could call them that, get to be 15, 16, 17, they can be extremely manipulative. I think if they sense that their parents are in disagreement over an issue like that, like underage drinking, then they're going to exploit that and they're going to try to manipulate the parents so that the child, if I could call them that, is not in trouble, and the child might blame the parents. And
Yeah.
so it's so critically important that the parents present a united front to the child in time in dealing with troubles of various types.
Yes, absolutely. Because you are absolutely right. Kids will use that to kind of pit one against the other. And, like, yeah, I got caught with alcohol and mom flipped out. And I know you won't react like that, and stuff like that. And that's why you have to tell the other parent so those things don't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's critical, and parents, I don't know if they underestimate or just don't realize how powerful it is for the child when the parents are united on an issue. Uh,
Hmm.
that's so critically important, and the alternative is usually ugly.
Yes. Yes. Because like I said, it just starts the conflict going all over again between the parents. And to that point, you also often, especially with the issue of alcohol, get one parent pointing fingers at and placing blame on the other, saying, "Well, if you didn't drink every night, Bobby wouldn't have done this." That is absolutely inaccurate because these are peer related activities. Kids shoplift with their friends, they drink alcohol with their friends. You rarely see a teenager alone sitting in the park drinking. Usually, one will call the other, "I scored a bottle of alcohol from my dad's alcohol cup, the liquor cabinet. I'll meet you at the school in 30 minutes." And then they sit there together and drink, or whatever. But those things are peer related activities. And so when one parent starts blaming the other, even if there is an association between the parent drinking and the child drinking, it isn't helpful. It doesn't help the child. What you have to do is work together to get them the help they need.
Well, and I think parents are well served to understand that their conflicts provide ammunition for their child to rebel and act out and manipulate. And that really is important to consider. It comes into play when you want to love your kids more than you hate your ex.
Yes.
Uh, Oftentimes that means that to some extent, the exes need to cooperate with each other and provide that united front to the child.
Yes. Because you are so right. Kids will use that stuff against you. You know, when they raise their voice and the parent says, "Don't you raise your voice at me." Well, you were just raising your voice at dad or at mom or, and so, yeah, they absolutely will bring that up. And
Well, it's
calling it ammunition is a good description because that's what it is, really.
yeah, and it's unfortunate, and parents, I guess if they are at odds with each other, they try to blame the other parent for the child's misbehavior.
Mhm.
And that probably is not very helpful,
No.
and not constructive as to raising the child with consistent messages.
Yes. Yes. And that's why it's important to discuss it on the apps. I mean, that's perfect. The apps are perfect for that kind of discussion because then the kids also can't overhear if you do debate or argue or whatever about the topic.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you're talking by phone and they hear it, they're going to use it.
Yeah, I think that that's true, and as they get into older teenage years and they are feeling their oats or their independence or their desire for independence, that's going to come forward, especially if the parents are at odds with each other.
Yes. 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 Um, I'm thinking if I want to say more about that because there's so much around this topic that, when you brought up kids using it as ammo, I mean, it's just there's so many things about how we communicate as co-parents that allows the kids to use it as ammo or to deflect with it. Like I said, now they can skirt the subject completely away from their action and move it on to shine a light on, if you will, the parent's behavior. And, parents are just stupid when they let their kids do that. I'm sorry to say that, but they are. I mean, be one step ahead of your kid. Use your head when it comes to your kid and don't give them that kind of excuse to deflect away from what they've done.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see how, if the parents are squabbling over the child's misdeed, if you will,
Yeah.
uh, I don't see how that's going to present a consistent, united position to the child. It's just not going to happen.
No, and it's not going to provide a solution. And again, what power that gives a kid that, boy, I can hear mom and dad fighting about me, you know. And younger kids don't like that, but older kids, they get a kick out of it, to be honest. They often do like it, especially if it's taking the focus off of them for a bit and something they've done.
Well, I would imagine most any kid would like to do that, take the focus off of
Yes.
themselves when they're caught with their hand in the cookie jar, so to speak.
Yes. Yes, for sure. For sure. But parents just don't always anticipate, not only not always, but they don't often anticipate this kind of stuff. It's like, what, you think your kids are now going to just be perfectly well behaved since you're getting a divorce, you know?
Right. And I think um, little kids feel oftentimes in their tummy what they're upset about.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate. Bigger kids tend to act out, little kids tend to get hurt and not know how to
Hmm.
cope.
Yes. Yes. Good point. Good point. We'll talk more about that when we come back. It's time for a quick break. But we're glad you're here. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. Before we went to break, you brought up something really important to talk about in all of this, George, and that is that children of different ages are going to behave differently and react differently to really all of this stuff. All of the co-parenting stuff that we talk about is going to be handled differently. And the point I was making that made you think of that is I said, little kids don't use stuff against parents and manipulate like older kids do. And you pointed out very adeptly, because it's true, that younger kids have somatic complaints or responses to those kinds of issues when parents fight. I've got a kid, to that point, you mentioned getting upset to their stomach. I've got a kid I'm working with who literally throws up when the parents are fighting. He throws up. And mom will send me a text or an email and say, so-and-so threw up again tonight. We were arguing and he threw up. And I'll say to her sometimes when she said the parents were arguing, well, did Bobby throw up? I mean, that's kind of our gauge, as sad as it is, of how bad the conflict between the parents is getting, because when it's bad, he throws up. Well, it's like you said, that's what little kids do. Older kids will use it. They'll manipulate. But younger kids, it really is detrimental to their health and well-being, and not just emotional health, but it can be their physical health as well.
Yeah, I think it's critical for parents to understand that their conflict impacts their children in different ways at different ages of the children, but it impacts them nevertheless. And their world is rocking when the parents are fighting.
It is. It is. And they can't stand it. And older kids, like I was saying earlier, they'll use that as a way of deflecting off what they're supposed to be doing. Younger kids just sit and get worked up about it and upset about it. And yeah. And that is a great segue to our next item. And that is because this, again, is a classic example of how parents' conflict affects children and at different ages. So one of the items is the parents are expected to communicate with each other. Duh. But The next statement is really the key here. The children are not to be messengers between the parents. Depending on the child's temperament, resiliency, just their personality type, they might, at all ages, at any age, be less or more averse to communicating between the parents, like being the messenger and passing on messages and things like that. But almost always, your younger children are negatively affected by it. And your older children will, again, often use it to manipulate and things like that. Now, I don't want to make it sound like all teenagers are bad people. They're not, they're teenagers. But they're at a place in their life where parents and family are not first right now. Friends are, and activities are. The sport they're good in, or something like that, is what kind of runs their world. And so they're more than happy to pass a message along just to get the parents, in conflict again so the child can go do what they want to do. But younger kids don't react like that, and it tends to really affect them when we ask them to pass messages on to the other parent. And here's the other piece: older kids know how to say, "No, I'm not going to be your messenger." But younger kids don't always know how to say that. They have not become yet, when they're 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, again, depending on the temperament of the child, but they usually have not yet become any degree of oppositional or defiant. They're usually very compliant. And so when you ask them, tell your other parent this, they say, okay. But then when it comes to, I've got to pass that message on, it doesn't set well with them, and they often don't react well to having to do that. But again, they don't know how to say to the parent up front, no, I'm not passing that on. You tell her or him yourself.
Yeah, I think that's true. And when there's no guarantee that the message is going to be passed on the way it was originally intended, and
Yes.
so we get confusion there. And then the thing that I would hear is, so and so is trying to be controlling me through the child,
Hmm.
or controlling the child, controlling me through messaging and so forth. And so it's just a bad idea all the way around. I think when that happens, it's like the exercise in school where you line up 4 or 5 people and you tell one thing to the first person and they pass it down the line, and the
Hmm.
last person has a different message from what the first person received. So
Yes.
put that on a child and say, you've got to deliver this message, and by the way, it has to be correct and as I intended and so forth. It's just a bad idea all the way around.
It is. It is. And to your point, even the tone of voice, the way the child conveys the message, delivers the message. It might be, oh, would you tell your dad that I really need help paying for that? And the message is, Mom said, pay for that yourself, you know, stuff like that. And so, yeah, we don't know that the message is getting delivered accurately and in the correct tone of voice and the manner in which you intended it.
Yeah, I think that's very true, and it's really to be avoided. It's not fair to the kids,
No,
on any level.
no, let's not do that to them. Let's not put them in that position because they shouldn't have to be our messengers. And what message does that send to them that you can't even communicate with one another? You
Yeah, I
know?
I, I think once my observation, I guess, has been that kids are very sensitive to parental conflict. I
Mm.
mean, it's not going to be hidden from them. They're going to be aware of it, and it's typically going to elicit some sort of a negative response from the child, whether it's physical or manipulative or defiant behavior. My parents can't get it together, so I can do what I want. That type of
Right.
a response.
Mhm.
So it's really can create more damage, I think, than parents realize.
Yes, and that's a good way of putting it, and we are not kidding, that kids think, "My parents can't get it together, so I can do what I want," because they are going to use all that stuff against you. That's gonna be their argument to you for them doing what they want is, "Well, you and dad can't stop fighting," or, "You and mom can't get it together enough to just be civil." And
Mhm.
so it does open the door for kids to kind of behave however they want.
Yeah, I think it's true. And then parents wonder, why am I having so much trouble with Junior?
Right? Right? And it's like, well, gee, let's see. And often the child is behaving in the very way the parent was behaving. And then the parent complains about it. And it's like, well, where do you think he or she got that? They
Well,
sound
and
just like you. Yeah.
typically, a good parenting plan, well constructed, um, will address many of these problems and give the
Yes.
parents the proper protocol to follow. And sometimes it's as simple as consulting their parenting plan to see how to
Mhm.
handle a particular situation.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's why
Read your plan.
the parenting plan needs to be thorough, well thought out, cover a broad spectrum of issues and protocols on how to handle issues in communication.
Yes. Yes. And people sometimes don't realize you can put all of that right in the plan. You truly can and should. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. The communication protocol between the parents, the
Mhm.
communication of the absentee parent with the child, all those things can be included in a parenting plan and really will often avoid conflict because it's in the parenting
Mhm.
plan, the resolution of how to handle a particular issue.
Yes. Yes. And parents can't argue with that or complain about the protocol that is in the plan. It's the order. You will communicate through this means on these items, or, because often it will say if it's an emergency, then you do something different. But for the vast majority of the communication, it doesn't need to be a phone call or even a text. It can be our family wizard or talking parents or civil communicator, any of those. And I also tell parents, this is just an added tip here while we're talking about this. I tell parents, make sure you text the parent just to let them know that that message is there, if it's somewhat time sensitive. If it's not, you probably don't need to. And I've also seen in plans where it says that parents will read their messages within 24 hours, respond to their messages within 48 hours, or things like that. But those are good protocols to put in place.
Absolutely. And a little bit of thought in advance goes a long way toward conflict resolution.
Yes. Yes. And if during the pendency of your divorce, the other parent is not responding in a reasonable length of time, that's an indication that you need to address it in the plan and just put some kind of protocol in there because, George, I hear every day, and I'm guessing you do too, that the other parent won't respond. The other parent never reads the messages. And that's another thing about these apps. It will indicate when the parent read it. There's indicators on most of those apps that will show when the parent read it, when they responded, things like that. So if they're not responding, not even reading it, you know that. And if that's what's going on, you better address it now and ask the court now, so you don't have to go back to court, to put a time frame in there that's reasonable, but is not too, doesn't make parents have to jump through hoops all the time, but it's reasonable and you're not sitting there waiting.
No, and that again, I think, is perceived as some sort of manipulative
hmm
behavior.
It is. It's control. It's control. I'm not going to read that because he sent it or she sent it, or I'll respond to that when I feel like it. Because sometimes they'll say, the plan will say that you must read the messages within a certain length of time, but then it says nothing about responding to them or the other way around. It'll say you have to respond within a certain length of time, but nothing about how quickly you have to read it. Well, then that's easy. You can just avoid it by not reading it. You don't open it, you don't read it, you don't respond to it. And you didn't violate the court order because I didn't know it was there, you know.
No, and really, parents need to be a little bit proactive. They
Yes.
need to be able to set aside their own hurt and anger, and really focus on how is my behavior and my means of communicating impacting the child.
Yes. Am I teaching them bad habits?
Yeah, yeah.
Am I behaving in a way that I don't want to see them behave someday? And yet you're setting an example for them.
Oh, sure,
Mhm.
absolutely, and they are amazingly aware, I think, of parental behavior.
They are. They are. More so than we have any idea. I can't tell you how many kids have told me that when the parent is in the shower, they read their texts and read their emails and stuff like that. It happens. If you don't
Well,
think it happens, you're short-sighted.
yeah, and really, parents, I don't think they get it a lot of times that they're sowing seeds for a lifetime of communication with their child. When the
Mhm.
child becomes an adult, you don't want them saying, "Gee, I can't wait to get out of here."
Yeah, right. Oh, and they will. They will. I hear kids say that a lot. When I turn 18, I don't want to have anything to do with either one of you. I've heard that a time or two. All right, let's move on to the next item, which is children are not to be, and this should be a no brainer. I can't believe we have to put this in a parenting plan, but we do. Children are not to be exposed to negative comments about their parents. This includes, and we were just talking about it, reading emails between parents, overhearing telephone calls between parents, or friends or relatives making negative comments in the presence of the children about the other parent.
I
And
think,
like I said, this should be a no brainer. Yeah, go ahead and comment, please.
well, it's telling on whether or not the parent has the ability to place the child's needs ahead of their own, and whether or not that parent displays an ability to encourage the relationship between the child and the other parent.
Yeah.
And if we get in court, um, we as attorneys, we're going to use that
hmm
to to uh, disparage, if you will, the other party,
hmm
and try to garner additional control, additional time, additional authority, and we're off to the races, and that's really unfortunate.
It is. It is. But you're right. I mean, especially parents need to be aware that the other parent, often in this day and age, records what you're saying, or even, and this is horrible, but even have the children record what you're saying in the other house. And so if you think those things aren't going to be used, you're sadly mistaken.
I think that's very
Yeah.
true.
Yes. And we'll talk more about that when we come back. Our time flies. Maybe it's just for me, but it flies. Time for another quick break. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. You know, it feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. Before we went to break, we were talking about children not being exposed to negative comments about their parents. And this is really important. You know, children derive their identity, especially when they're really young, from their parents. And so when you put down the parent, you're putting down the child as well. And I can't emphasize that enough. You know, 6-year-olds don't have their own identity. It's tied up with the parent.
No, I think it's pretty common to hear, well, my child thinks they're part me and part my spouse, and so if I'm bad, then they're part bad.
Yeah.
And that's the message, the takeaway that the child has. It's really damaging, I think, to children. I don't know if parents realize how much their conflict negatively impacts their children.
Mm-hmm.
I I want to believe that they don't understand that, because
Right.
if they wouldn't do it deliberately.
Right. And they wouldn't do it as much as they do. We wouldn't see it as much as we see it if they understood that.
Right.
And
And you know, I would think that parents would feel more comfortable with a peaceful co-parenting relationship than an armed encampment type of approach to their co-parenting.
yes, you would think. You would think. And to that point, sometimes, you know, like both parents, for example, may go to children's activities at the school, you know, a school play or a performance or a program of some sort. But they don't need to have contact with each other if they're not going to be civil. The kids want you both there. But you get that parent who insists on going over to the other parent and starting a conversation, and it never goes well. And if that's where you're at, stay away from each other.
Absolutely. It's not that difficult. And
No.
with the communication choices that are available, there's no need for one parent to walk up to the other parent at a game or a performance of some sort and start a conversation.
No, that's right. That's right. And this kind of leads into the next one really well. Co-parents are expected to communicate with each other about decisions or events which affect the children at each household, but they are expected to do this prior to speaking with the child about an upcoming decision. And this is one that I am really firm on with my parents that I work with. Do not tell the child, well, if it's okay with your mom or if it's okay with your dad, you can go with me this weekend, even though it's supposed to be the other parent's weekend. You don't even say anything. What I'm talking about here is if a parent is going, because I had this happen, if a parent's going to go away for the weekend, they're going to go skiing in the winter. We're in Colorado, people go skiing for the weekend, or camping in the summer. Again, we're in Colorado. There's a lot of good camping to be had in the mountains in the summer. But if the child knows that you're going to do that weekend and they're scheduled to be with the other parent, don't tell them that it's even a possibility that they can go with you unless and until you talk to the other parent and they agree to swap weekends or just let the child go with you that particular weekend, because all you're doing is making the other parent the bad guy. Because then when they ask the other parent, hey, can I go with dad this weekend or mom this weekend? And the other parent says no, now you've made them the bad guy. And that's not fair. So make sure you have those conversations before you ever talk to the children about them.
Well, that's I think very true, and we don't want the children still need to be children. They
Yeah.
need guidance and direction from their parents, and that guidance and direction is going to be better received if it's consistent across both homes.
Yes, it is. And I have a story. I think I have just enough time to share it, so I'm going to. I've told it before, very possibly even on this show, but it's really a good lesson for parents to learn. And when I said I've had this happen before, I've had it happen more than in this one case. But I had a case in particular many years ago. And the dad in the summer kept saying he would have his camping gear out. And these particular parents did a Thursday dinner visit with the other parent, going into the weekend with the other parent. And so they would do a Thursday dinner visit. Well, dad would have his camping gear out when the kids came for Thursday dinner visit. And they'd say, oh, you're going camping? I want to go. And he would say every time, well, if it's okay with your mom, you can. It's fine with me. I'd love to have you go. And that's not the right response. Just so parents know, before I finish this story, the correct response is, well, I wish you could go too, and maybe we'll go a different weekend when I have you. But I'm sure your mom has fun stuff planned for the weekend, and she wants to spend time with you too. So you need to enjoy your time with her. Well, dad just could not do that. He could not help himself. And every weekend, when it was time to spend the weekend with mom, he would make some kind of comment that, well, if it's okay with her, you can come. Well, then they would go to mom and say, we want to go with dad camping this weekend. Is that okay? And she'd say, well, no, I wanted to do such and such with you guys, or do nothing at all and be home and just enjoy a weekend at home, being off work and out of school and enjoying each other's company. And the kids would say, well, that doesn't sound fun. I don't want to do that. I want to go camping with dad. So when it gets towards the end of summer, I, of course, think, well, good, this will end for a while. And I have 9 months or 8 months or 6 or 7, whatever, but some time to work with him on this before camping season starts up again. Well, the first weekend that the ski slopes opened here in Colorado, same thing happened. Dad's got his ski gear out. And the kids get there for dinner visit on Thursday and, oh, you're going skiing this weekend? I want to go. And the same thing would happen all over again. And George, I don't know why I remembered this detail, but we ended up in court in November of that year. I remember it was November. And I remember the judge asking me, the mom complained about Dad's behavior. And mind you, I had even suggested that Dad not get his camping gear out and his ski equipment out until after the kids had left on Thursday. But, you know, it never failed. He did it anyway. And the judge asked me when I was on the stand, is what Mom's complaining about true? And unfortunately, I had to say, yes, I hate to tell you that it is true. And because I wanted to show that I had done my job, I said, I have tried to talk to Dad about this and work with him on it. But yes, he does continue to have a problem with that. And George, what happened next dumbfounded me. I was floored. The judge said, you know what? To the father, you don't get it. You can go back to having every other weekend with your kids and no more. And he had been a 50-50 parent. And the judge, just based on that situation, told him, you don't get it. You can't keep your 50-50 parenting time, and put him back to every other weekend with the children.
Well,
It was devastating. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think that is unfortunately somewhat typical of what happens at court. Somebody is going to feel like they lost, and most of the time, both parties feel as if they have lost.
Right, right. And that's the kind of stuff that can happen at court. You never know what's going to happen at court. Parents don't realize that. It can be something like that that none of us expected. We did not expect that.
No, you didn't see it coming, and that happens with some degree of frequency in court.
It does. It does. So I hope everybody out there is listening to us and that they get this.
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful if they plan ahead a little bit and communicate in advance, instruct a good parenting plan, read it from time to time.
Yes, for sure. This is another wrap, but good to have you here, George, and thanks to everyone out there for listening. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you've been watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. See you next week.
Tune in to The High Road with host Dr. Marlene and gain insight into how to rise above tough circumstances and learn the skills that will help you take the high road in your life, no matter what challenges might come your way, on the next episode of The High Road.